In the Teal Mask DLC, we revealed that Ogerpon was not the villain of the story, rather she was a tragic girl boss who was the victim of an awful misunderstanding. But this cutesy little creature is not truly without fault, for while she acted in self-defense against the Loyal 3, what she has done to competitive Pokémon was nothing more than an unprompted, unjustified assault. Let's break it down. Ogerpon has access to 4 different masked forms, each of which completely changes the way she plays by altering her moves, typing, and ability. So we'll be taking them one by one in order from weakest to strongest, but all 4 forms are great, so weak is an extremely relative term. First, let's break down what's the same for all 4 forms. They all have the same great base stats with great speed and attack, and a move pool full of valuable moves like Wood Hammer, Encore, Stomping Tantrum, Spiky Shield, Swords Dance, Follow Me, so on, so forth, forever. This includes access to their signature move, Ivy Cudgel, a 100 base power, 100% accurate move with an increased chance to critically hit, and whose typing changes depending on which form your Ogerpon is in. Second, they all have access to a special ability that only activates when they Terra, Embody Aspect. This gives a 1-stage boost to your speed, attack, defense, or special defense, depending on your Ogerpon's form. This ability triggers on switch-in, as well as when you initially Terra, so there's no reason to be afraid to switch your terrestrialized Ogerpon in and out. Alright, we've covered the basics, so let's start ranking our forms. Number 4 is Cornerstone Ogerpon. It's the grass and rock type form of Ogerpon. To turn him into this form, it has to be holding the Cornerstone Mask, which changes its form and also grants a 1.2 times boost to all of Ogerpon's attacks, an effect that all of the form-changing masks of Ogerpon share. This Ogerpon's ability is Sturdy, which essentially functions as a built-in focus sash. Except, if you somehow get back to maximum HP, the ability can be used again and again. It doesn't get used up. And when this form terrestrializes, it boosts its defense. Just keep in mind, when you terrestrialize, you don't keep both abilities, so the stat boost will replace the base form ability. Having a 100% accurate, high base power physical rock type move is already a huge draw to this Ogerpon. Usually, we have to resort to low power moves like Rock Slide, or extremely inaccurate ones like Stone Edge for physical rock type attacks. And given how many relevant types rock hits for super effective damage, a lot of players are willing to take the risks associated with those moves, but with Cornerstone Ogerpon, you don't have to. Rock Ogerpon has 2 different roles it can fill. First, it can just be a plain old attacker on a hyper offense team with Pokemon like Chinpow and Tornadus. Thanks to its ability, you can basically have 2 focus sashes on your team. Having multiple fast, hard-hitting Pokemon that are impossible to knock out in one move is extremely valuable for a team whose defensive play often starts and ends at, well, the opponent's Pokemon can't hurt me if it's dead. For this style of Ogerpon, I'd recommend using Wood Hammer, Ivy Cudgel, Spiky Shield, and Encore. For another funny option, Ogerpon gets access to the move Horn Leech, basically physical Giga Drain. You can combine this move with Swords Dance to get huge damage and huge recovery. With the right conditions, you may be able to heal back to full HP, resetting your Sturdy. If you want to try this, run a set of Horn Leech, Ivy Cudgel, Swords Dance, and Spiky Shield. Next, at number 3, we have Teal Mask Ogerpon. This is Ogerpon's base form, and doesn't require a held item to use. On one hand, this means you can use a real held item on this version, like Focus Sash, but on the other hand, it means you don't get the 1.2 times boost that comes with the other masks. Overall though, I'd say it's an upside, you don't need to use a mask item. This is the Ogerpon that likely has the best ability, both its Terra form and non-Terra form. And its non-Terra form, it has Defiant, which stops your opponents from weakening your Ogerpon with Intimidate. And in its maxed form, it gets a speed boost, which is extremely threatening given Ogerpon's relatively high speed stat. Since this Ogerpon isn't locked into an item, there's a lot of ways you can build it, but most commonly, I've seen it with a Focus Sash. Because this Ogerpon is so flexible, I don't really have a set I'd recommend specifically, just make sure you include Ivy Cudgel, that move is broken. Hey, by the way, if you like the long-form content we've been putting out lately, subscribe. Thanks. Next, at number 2, we have Wellspring Ogerpon. This one is Water and Grass, has Water Absorb in its base form, and boosted special defense in its Terra form. This Ogerpon's ability and typing makes it an insanely good redirector. Thanks to its Grass typing, Follow Me can redirect away Spore and Sleep Powder from its partners completely for free. And thanks to Water Absorb, your opponent can basically never click a Water type move while this Ogerpon is on the field, extremely relevant when Urshifu Rapid Strike is so popular. Try running this Ogerpon with Horn Leech for recovery, Ivy Cudgel, Spiky Shield, and Follow Me. Alternatively, this Ogerpon's special defense boost makes it great at using Swords Dance. If you pair it with an Intimidator, you're getting boosts on both sides of your defense. Not to mention that Water is great defensive typing, so combined with Horn Leech's recovery, you can stick around and deal damage for quite a while. And finally, at number 1, we have Hearthflame Ogerpon. This Ogerpon is Fire and Grass type. Its base ability is Mold Breaker, and when it goes into its Terra form, its attack gets boosted. I don't know what they were thinking with this Pokemon. It is busted. For starters, you might be thinking, Moldbreaker is an okay ability, but how often does it really come up? Well, let me remind you that one of the most common switch-ins for fire-type attacks is Heatran, because of its fire immunity. But with Moldbreaker, instead of ignoring the attack, Heatran takes like 50% of its HP. But beyond that, Fire and Grass as stab typings complement each other extremely well, and are able to hit a ton of types for super effective damage. As for its Terra ability, the ability to get a free +1 attack boost on top of the 1.2 times boost from your mask, and the normal stab doubling Terastallization does, makes this guy an insane delete button. There are very few Pokemon that live that hit without resisting it. Probably just Cresselia and Iron Hands. Keep in mind though, that if you Terra this guy and lose Moldbreaker, suddenly Heatran becomes a real problem because he 4 times resists both fire and grass. This Ogerpon is by far the most straightforward. It's just really good at hitting stuff. You can run this Ogerpon with Dual Stab, Follow Me Spiky Shield, a Swords Dance set, or honestly, you could just run a third coverage move, like Play Rough or Stomping Tantrum or something. Honestly, this Ogerpon form has a really similar feeling to me as Zacian Crown, where the game can kind of just devolve into being all about making sure your Ogerpon is well positioned before your opponent's is, but maybe I'm exaggerating. Well, there you have it, how I feel about every new Ogerpon form, and why they've been so strong in VGC all of a sudden. Do you love these cute new Ogre Overlords, or hate them? Let me know in the comments.